is something like 900 days, you might be surprised to hear, since the Senate passed a budget. We keep getting these stopgap spending bills, no budgets, arguments over jobs bills. What on earth is going on Capitol Hill? Perhaps Congresswoman Renee Ellmers, Republican of North Carolina, can enlighten us. Why so long since we've had any action on anything meaningful, Congresswoman?
Well, that's what we're asking the American people to call out to Harry Reid and explain. Why have you been operating? Today, it's 888 days since the Senate has passed a budget. Now, you know what? Back home, our households can't operate without a budget. Our businesses can't operate without a budget. And yet Washington, the federal government says, well, we can just keep operating and we can keep spending the taxpayers' money without having a budget in place. So this is what we're calling on Harry Reid and the American people to let's get this going. Let's pass the bills that the House of Representatives has worked on and passed over to the Senate that Harry Reid also has not voted on.
So you're saying that the Congress is doing it, the House is doing its job, the
Yes.
Senate is failing to do its?
Absolutely. We've been working tirelessly since day one. Our very first vote that we took in the House of Representatives was to repeal Obamacare. That in itself would do great things for the American people because we're seeing the effects on the economy now in that effort that hasn't even actually been put in place yet. So these are the things that we've worked on over and over again. We've passed bills to cut regulation, spending, drill for oil, create jobs, and yet Harry Reid gets the bills and does not vote on them. The Ryan budget, the House budget that we passed, will create jobs in the future. It's a wonderful mechanism for putting some financial stability in place, and yet he has not voted on it. The president had a vote on his budget in the Senate. It did not get one single vote, 0 votes for the president's budget, and yet the Senate does not return with an alternative solution.
Congresswoman, the Democrats in the House and in the Senate would say that the bills that you are passing in the Republican-controlled House are ideologically driven, our way or the highway kind of bills with no hint of compromise, and that's why they're not going anywhere beyond the House.
No, actually, in fact, that is incorrect. The majority of bills that we have passed have all had bipartisan support. And this is why we say, when I hear that there's gridlock here in Washington, it is just an incorrect picture of what's happening. We need the American people to understand that the House of Representatives is working and doing its job. Unfortunately, the Senate is not. And that's exactly what we're calling out to the American people. I've asked folks back home, I've said, hey, start calling Harry Reid's office. Let's start trying to figure out what it is that his plan is moving forward. You know, it's time that the Senate comes to the table. We've got to end this.
But we keep getting these stopgap spending measures as well.
Right.
That's something that needs to be tackled as a longer-term issue, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. And that is what the American people need to understand. The reason that we're voting on continuing resolutions every couple of months is because there is no budget. If we had a budget, we wouldn't be having to take these stopgap measures to keep the federal government operating. A budget is a necessity that the Senate has not voted on. Again, today, 888 days.
Do you think you have any chance whatsoever in this highly charged political arena with an election looming, a presidential election looming next year, of getting any action from the Democrats in the Senate?
Well, you know what? We will when we get the American people engaged. We are calling out to the American people, and we're calling out to the media. These are the things that we're saying, let's draw attention to this issue. When I talk back home to my constituents about the fact that the federal government has been operating without a budget for such a long period of time, they are astounded. They're asking me, how can that possibly be? And yet it is. And this is the question that we have to ask Harry Reid. This is the question we need to pose to the Senate and the president. We can turn this economy around. I am very optimistic that if we just get some of the pieces of legislation that we've passed in the House moving forward, we will be creating jobs in the private sector, because that's where we know the solution is, with our business owners and removing the uncertainty that they're faced with.
So, Congresswoman, if you want legislative action, and you sound like a woman of action, you would presumably agree with the President's call today for Congress to vote on the American Jobs Act.
Well, you know, there are pieces in his bill that we all agree on. In fact, there are pieces of legislation that we have been working on here in the House. For instance, the 3% withholding to any of our government contractors, which for many government contractors would literally put them out of business. That is a piece that we can all agree on. And of course, Leader Cantor came forward with his statement saying that there are pieces that we will. But as a whole, his bill is not effective in creating jobs because some of the pieces that he puts in place actually ends up as an unintended consequence will harm business.
But as a bill, does it deserve a straight up or down vote, yes or no, from each and every one of you?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. I think that if we did have an up or down vote on it, I think it would be voted down because there are many Democrats who have also come forward and said that they cannot support it. So if that's what it takes in order to move forward, I'll be open to it. But the fact of the matter is the American people want action now. They want us to solve these problems in Washington. They want us removing the uncertainty. If we take a vote like that, in all honesty, it really isn't going to do anything. I can predict the outcome. And, you know, what we need are the solutions.